Okay, welcome to the next key knowledge, which is on management skills, obviously, as you're reading the title there. But just to preface that, just to get our minds thinking around this topic, think of as many personal skills that you have. Are you a good football player? Can you play musical instruments? Are you a good drawer? Are you good artistically, creatively? Okay, think of as many of those type of skills. Now then, let's take that a step further and think in a business context. What type of skills might you have? Now, clearly, if I was asking you a brainstorm, and you can probably cheat a bit here, you're looking on the slide here going, okay, there's loads I can draw upon. Communication, multitasking, interpersonal, critical thinking. So we're talking about skills which we can use in business. So management skills are the topic, and hopefully that sort of sets the tone for it for you. So management skills is our topic. Area of study 1 and unit 3 on business foundations. And these are the skills we're going to cover within this key knowledge point. Now, as I alluded to in the first slide, is there are thousands of skills out there that you could potentially be thinking about that could use in a business context. What we need to draw upon here is the key word including. Okay, so within the study design, we must cover these specific skills: communication, delegation, planning, leadership, decision-making, interpersonal. We have to cover those. You may do other ones within your class, within your teacher and the program that you've got, but we have to cover these ones. So this is the key word, including. So the first skill, communication. Now, the key point with all of these skills we're going to cover is in your general personal life, absolutely you know what communication is, delegation, because they're part of our normal conversation that we have with each other. The important bit for when you get to assessment and the VCAR exams in November and your SACs is how you articulate that, how you show you can not only identify the skill, but describe it, have a business application, evaluate whether it's going to be good or bad in that situation. A silly little example I'll share with you is if I was to ask my class, what is an apple? Well, if you're going to tell me back that an apple is an apple, I'm going, okay, well, if you were from outer space or something like that, you want to understand what an apple is by that context. However, if you said an apple is a spherical fruit with a crunchy texture, a shiny skin, which is usually red or green, then you're now describing it. You're giving features to someone who has never seen an apple before, would now know what it's about. So for each of these skills, we need to describe them to someone who wouldn't understand them beforehand. So forget your general knowledge. We need to get specific about it. So often I find that students want to try and have a really well expressed definition so they can use that in their SACs and the exam. So for us, the key takeaway from communication is the transfer of information from a sender to a receiver. Okay, we could learn that if we wanted to. Okay, the idea is we're imparting knowledge to someone, okay, from me to you. I'm communicating to you right now. Sometimes that has feedback. However, as we saw in autocratic, it's very much a one-way communication style that doesn't have feedback. So transfer of information from a sender to a receiver. So let's think of a business context. Where are we going to see that happening? We're going to see it happening between an owner and a manager, expressing what they want to get out of the business and how many profits they want to make. It could be between a manager and the employees, telling them the tasks they want them to do, or the owner and the suppliers. It could occur verbally, so we could have an interview, a business interview, recruiting new staff for human resource management. It could be about non-verbal, when a business report comes out, communicating information about the key performance indicators and how they're tracking in the business. Okay, so there's lots and lots of examples. Think for yourself in your part-time jobs where you have business information being communicated to you about procedures you need to follow when you're working in your business, about how the sales have gone for that period of time and telling the manager. So all of this, verbal, non-verbal, could be business reports, annual general meetings, interviews, emails, all of this is forms of communication. Now again, think for yourself, your part-time job, how can sometimes that be disrupted? Where you may be distracted by what was going on around and you didn't get the full information. Was the background sounds that are going on disrupting you? So all of those things can damage the communication flow. Equally, your attention to detail can enhance it. The fact that you're fully focused, you've got less distraction around you, you put away your mobile phone and you're listening to this recording really intently to try and get the very best out of it. All of that can enhance the communication flow. So think about that. The key takeaway though, like I said, is having a good description of what this skill is and having a good business example to showcase to assessors. Our next skill, delegation. Okay, so delegation, hopefully taken from this semi-humorous cartoon here, we have the king, okay? And the king is out there painting lines on a road. Now, clearly that's a waste of time for the king. The king should be focused on more highfalutin jobs in terms of deciding the outcome of the country or something like that and where it's going to head in the future. So the joke within this cartoon is that delegation is handing on the responsibility to someone else of some tasks to save the manager, or in this case the king, having to do themselves. So the key takeaway is we're transferring the authority or responsibility from a manager to employee to carry out specific activities, okay? I'm asking you to do something for the business. However, I, as the manager, remain accountable for the work. So if you don't do the task and it doesn't get completed, it's ultimately my ultimate accountability. Okay, it didn't happen. Whose fault is it? It's mine. So a deeper dive of this is, okay, what can we delegate and what shouldn't we delegate? What's the benefits of it? Well, the benefits for me as a manager is that I no longer need to use all that time in terms of doing menial, smaller tasks. Okay, so I can free up some time to do more strategic thinking about where the business is heading. Okay, so I can do some long range. Also, hopefully the benefits are for you, that as you take on some of these tasks, you get more skilled, you can demonstrate your ability that will allow you in the future to have opportunities for promotion or career advancement. So there's benefits for both parties here. So what should be delegated? Things that are simple to pursue, things that can add to the business, those type of things are really good that can save me time. Also things that can help you develop as an individual and as an employee. So that's the type of things that should be delegated. Unfortunately, what you'll sometimes see in businesses and maybe in your own part-time job is things get inappropriately delegated. Things either that you're not prepared for or skilled for, so you feel overwhelmed, or you get given the menial jobs of going out to get coffees for the manager, okay? That's not a sort of job that should just be averagely delegated out. So what shouldn't be delegated are things that are vital for the success of the business, that are critically important, that are beyond the skills of the employees, and things that otherwise would be better off done by the manager themselves. And we're looking for things that should be delegated, things that add skills and value to you as an employee that you can do, and you can take some time off the manager so they can pursue other more strategic visions. The next skill is planning. Okay, so here, again, in a generic sense, we know what planning is, but we want to have a really airtight definition for the assessors. So this is the process of thinking about the strategies and tasks required to best achieve a business objective. Let's say that the objective was to expand the business and export overseas, okay? We're going to be thinking about how best to do that. We're going to just make our products and export them by shipping. Are we going to set up a manufacturing plant overseas? Are we going to have somebody have a license to do that for us? So we're thinking ahead about the strategies and tasks to best achieve that objective. You'll sometimes hear these words strategic, tactical, or operational. So strategic, long-term planning. We're planning for the 3 to 5 year bracket, somewhere in the future for our business. Okay, we want to try and get to that objective in the future. So tactical, within a year, we're trying to reach an objective. Or operational, really on a day-to-day operation. Things come up each day. Let's plan who's going to do these tasks on this day to get us ready for that. So what are the benefits of doing this planning, doing this thinking about where we're going to be heading? Well, hopefully it's going to streamline the process. Okay, the classic expression is if we fail to plan, then we plan to fail. Okay, so if we're not doing this planning, we're setting ourselves up for failure. By doing the planning, we can sort things out and make sure it's really smooth to get to our objective. We can make sure all our resources are ready to go to achieve our objective. All of our employees are aware of where we are heading, so they can be embracing that and be on board with it rather than resisting it. So there's lots of benefits of planning. The disadvantages, okay, well, arguably it's what the usual one is time, okay? The time we need to put aside to do the planning to get ourselves ready for this process. So what does a process potentially look like? There's lots of processes out there for how we can go about planning. This is one example of them. I call it the SOS AIM process. The idea is, okay, if we are thinking about exporting, what are the steps in a planning process to get to that point? First of all, set the objective. Is our objective to increase market share? Is our objective to increase sales or profit? Is it to increase the number of customers for long-term benefit? So there could be lots of reasons why we want to get set out for that. We want to be very clear about the objective. We want to increase our market share by 10% and we'll achieve that by exporting. The next one is what's called a SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis, this is like a visual representation of where your business is right now. So if we draw up a little grid, here we have our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. Now in this box, strengths, we're going to write down all the things that we are really good at the moment in the business. So say we're a chocolate manufacturer, then we're really good at making really high quality chocolates. We're well regarded for that and our customers love it. The weaknesses, okay, this is what we're maybe not so good at right now. So by writing down, okay, we've got a manufacturing plant that's a little bit limited in the amount of space we actually have. We need some more. The opportunities are things we could possibly see happening in the future. Okay, there's an opportunity here to grow and export our business and use it and expand it overseas. And then the threats, these are the things that could potentially harm us. This could be competitors stealing our market share. So really, if you want to think about it, the strengths and weaknesses are inside our business, what's good and bad inside our business, and the opportunities and threats are outside of our business. What are the future things which are possibly good, or the future things that are possibly bad that will affect us? Now, by having a grid like that, a visual representation, that gives us some information to go, okay, what can we build upon in terms of our strengths, or what can we try to remove from our weaknesses to allow us to succeed? Now, with our concept of exporting and going overseas, well, there's lots of alternatives to consider. So now we know a bit more about our business. Do we export directly and manufacture at home? Do we arrange a partnership with a licensed company overseas that will do it for us? Are we going to actually build our own plant in another overseas country and manufacture over there and distribute in the local region? So we can lay out all the different alternatives, consider our strengths and weaknesses of our businesses, and then pick one from that. So you can see our planning process is going ahead. Okay, we need to be doing this. We've got our alternatives. What resources do we need ahead? What labor do we need? Who do we need to communicate to? And we start to organize that whole process. Then we finally get to the point at which we're going to implement. So we choose to build a manufacturing plant overseas, and we do that with all this planning that's gone ahead beforehand. And then obviously we're going to check afterwards to see whether we've been successful. So we're going to monitor and evaluate the success. Now, if we find out we've been successful, great. If we find out we're not quite there, then we can go back into the process again and improve and refine that objective and refine our planning steps to try and improve upon the whole process. This is called an example of a planning process. I call it SOSA. Okay, so it's a nice little anagram to try and remember it. So set objectives, do a SWOT analysis, lay out the different alternatives, implement one of them, and then monitor to see how we're successful. So this is an example of a process of thinking about the strategies and tasks required to best achieve a business objective. So you can see with a lot of depth now on something that is pretty generic and we understand from the beginning. Planning, leadership. Now again, this will be a word very familiar to you if you've been involved in any sporting teams or within the school. School leadership, okay? So it's about, in our business setting, guiding the business and its employees toward achieving its objectives. So let's say you work for a small florist in a local regional area. Okay, if our objective is to increase our sales, how can leadership guide the business, the employees, and try and direct us and inspire us to head in the right direction? This picture hopefully sort of sums it up because you'll lead from the front and draw everyone along with you. Or sometimes you'll have leaders lead from behind and sort of direct the operations where people want to go. But the important things are within it are this. We need to have a clear vision. We will be heading for an increase of 100% in sales. Okay, and we need to do that within a year. So some clear vision, direction. We're going to inspire and share that vision with everyone. So in this florist business, everyone's on board. Everyone knows what their role within it is. And if there's different stakeholders going, okay, well, actually, I'm not sure we can actually do this, or we're a bit fearful, we're balancing these interests and going, okay, it's going to be okay. We're going to get that way. I'm going to lead you through it and hopefully inspire you and motivate you to achieve the objectives. So leadership, literally what it says, okay, but it's a really important one to develop the business to achieve its objectives. Okay, our next one is decision-making. Decision-making as a skill, again, is very much in common language. We all know what decision-making is. We, again, need to get an airtight definition for our assessors. So decision-making, process of purposely choosing a course of action from a set of alternatives. to achieve a business objective. So we have our two alternatives here, okay? We can head this way or this way. Which way are we going to go? So let's have a business application again. So let's pretend we're working in our part-time job at a local cafe during COVID. Do we close down the business and just prevent additional losses occurring, or do we have a takeaway system? What is the best course of action for us to take to give us the best chance of succeeding in business and surviving effectively during the pandemic? In your own life, think about how do you make decisions about how you use your time. Okay, am I going to choose to have a rest in this next period of time? Am I going to choose to sit down and do a practice test? Am I going to choose to go out and walk the dog? What's the benefits and weaknesses of each one? Okay, so how do I go about choosing between the different options? There's lots of different ways we can go about decision making. Some of you in that scenario there about what do I do with my time? It's like a gut feel. Okay, right now I feel I need a break. I'm going to walk the dog, or the dog's at the bottom of the table here and demanding my attention. So sometimes it's gut feel. In bigger situations, we often do a list of pros and cons. Right now, you might be choosing and deciding what you want to do after school. That's more than hopefully a gut feeling. Okay, you might be writing down, okay, these are the potential courses I might want to go on. What is the strengths and weaknesses of going on each one of those? Or potentially getting into my first full-time job and employment, or going overseas, or doing some travel, having a year off. You're listing out the pros and cons so you can hopefully make the best decision. We'll hopefully add a bit more about it in terms of analysing the facts, finding out, okay, how much is it going to cost me? How much money do I need to save up if I take a gap year? What are the fees and the time and the duration for the courses? Will it match my skills? So we could do some deeper analysis. A stage further again for many businesses is to actually use a similar version of the planning process we talked about in planning. Things like a SOS aim, having an actual decision-making process where we go, okay, what's the objectives we want to achieve? What's our alternatives? Weighing up the good things and the bad things of both, implementing one, and then seeing whether that was successful. Okay, so in summary, as we're taking it here from the definition, we know what it's like in real life. We need to apply that to business. So what is the process of choosing a course of action from a set of alternatives to achieve whatever business objectives we set out to achieve? Okay, probably of all the skills we've covered so far, this is probably the first one that you go, okay, I haven't really heard this one in general conversation. So interpersonal skills. Now, again, we'll just go straight to the key takeaway. So what is this about? Okay, these are skills used by a person to interact with others properly. In business, the term refers to an employee's ability to build positive relationships with others while getting the job done. Okay, so we have a definition here. You can sort of draw out from that. This is about interactions. This is about people. This is about reading people's emotions and building positive relationships so people can interact with each other. So let's just take this photo here. What can we see happening here? And was your first takeaway here, is this a successful interaction or an unsuccessful one? Well, hopefully what you're taking from this picture is there seems to be a bit of conflict going on. There's some arguments. There's people giving themselves a bit of a stare here. We've got some outriding opinions going on here. And then what looks like a manager or somebody at the top of the table effectively withdrawing from that situation and not managing it, not helping resolve the conflict that seems to be apparent in this picture. We could hopefully take away this is not working very well in a business scenario. The manager's withdrawn. What should the manager possibly be doing? Okay, either reading the emotions that are coming out and either trying to downplay them with a bit of humor, or focusing people, okay, what is the key task we need to get there? Showing some authority, understanding and drawing in, being diplomatic about, I can understand where you're coming from, I can understand where you're coming from, but this is where the point we need to reach. So all of this is interpersonal skills. Reading people's behavior, understanding their moods, trying to create a situation where they feel comfortable and safe and creative, and a chance for them to then build upon the business objectives. The benefits of having these skills is hopefully going to be really motivated employees who are creative, risk-taking. They're going to add great new ideas to your business, and a very harmonious situation in which we can lead towards achieving success. Okay, so we're now going to work through an example. And what hopefully this will show you is why it's important to take what words we use in general conversation and how we can draw that out to get a really good examination answer. So here's our question. Explain one skill that the human resource manager will require during the period of a store closure. So this was adapted from a VCAR question in the past. Really important to pick out, as we've said before, the key task words. So first of all, we need to explain. That's much more than just identify. We're much more than describe or outline. Okay, we want to have a lot of detail on here, and we want to be able to apply it to the business. If you look to the VCAR report over here, what happened when students actually did this question here, students had to consider this task word explain. They're required to link their answer to the case study. So what's happening here? The case study is a human resource manager, someone who's dealing with people. And it's about going through the period of closure. So people are clearly going to be upset, fearful for their job security. So what is the role of the manager going to be placed in actually getting through that period of time? So we're looking for quite a bit of detail because the average was only 1.15 out of 3. We definitely need to identify it. We're going to be looking for that. Then describing the skill, okay, in the context of the case study, and then applying it. So let's break all those down and see where we can find them. First of all, we're going to choose here communication. People are nervous and fearful, so we need to communicate to them about how we're going to get through this period of closure. Now, remember we said before, we can't just say that the apple is an apple. We have to say what communication is. We need to add some detail behind here. So we're going to say here, this is the transfer of relevant information, such as dates and people being made redundant, as well as the outline of processes being undertaken. Okay, so we've now described what communication is. Transfer of information from a sender to receiver. And we've linked it to this context of we're closing down the business. So we're telling people when it's going to close down, who's going to be affected, how we're going to build your job for the future. Now we've got to say why this is really important. As a significant change affecting likely hundreds of employees, we need to be able to deliver appropriate information. It's crucial. There should be adapt in all forms of communication, whether it's verbal, telling people what's going to happen, or through written correspondence, sending out letters. Length and complexity they need to deliver would vary. So we're adding a lot more detail to our answer. And so suddenly we've taken what could be, okay, they're going to need communication, which is going to get you 1 mark, to the 3 marks that are available, and we've drawn it out based upon this key task word, explain. Okay, hopefully what we have here is a nice summary of all the skills. Remember, firstly, you may talk about a lot of skills, but these are the ones in the study design, so we must be able to identify them, describe them, and apply them to a business to be able to discuss whether they're appropriate or not, to be able to justify them or evaluate how they're being used in the business. So communication, the transfer of information from a sender to a receiver. Delegation, handing over the responsibility to an employee to perform a task, but you retain as a manager the ultimate accountability for the success of that job. Planning, setting out the steps that you're going to follow to achieve success in your business objective. Leadership, guiding and motivating and inspiring and giving a vision of where we're going to head. Decision making, choosing the best course of action from a number of alternatives. And interpersonal, as a manager, reading the emotions in the group, seeing how people are responding and how to get the very best out of them in a teamwork scenario. So these are the key terms. What's coming up next in our next lesson is we're going to look at how this area of skills links to the one we've done previously on styles. So I look forward to seeing you then.